So, is it possible to reach your fitness goals, whether that's building muscle or losing weight, while keeping glad kosher? Short answer is yes. The long answer is yes. Whether you're trying to build muscle and gain weight, or you're trying to lose fat and tone your body, keeping kosher offers a guideline that naturally puts you in a position to be dieting. So, first, I want to talk about some of the specifics that go into kashrut. Obviously, I'm not a rabbi. Ask your local rabbi about the specifics, about your minhagim, what you follow. But the main keys that we need to be following are, of course, no pork, no shrimp, no mixing meat and dairy. And so when someone has meat, whether that's chicken or steak, then you'll have to wait 6 hours to have dairy again. If you have dairy, then you need to wait either 30 minutes or an hour, or whatever your minhag is, to have meat again. Again, ask your local rabbi what your minhagim are. That's not my role. My job here is to inspire you to not use kashrut and being kosher as a crutch or an excuse to not reach your fitness goals. Before I begin talking about anything else about, your reaching your fitness goals and keeping kosher, I just want to preface this conversation by saying that the underlying assumption is that you are exercising, you're on a exercise plan, you are hitting your workouts, and you are doing the work necessary for the fuel that you put into your body to do its job as well. So going into workout plans and, things like that, that is a topic of discussion for another video, so we'll save that for later. So today I want to focus on just keeping kosher and dieting and reaching your goals. So we already touched on a little bit of the kashrut, things that you should be following. There's also parv products as well. And so that don't really fall into the category of meat or dairy, so you can have them sort of whenever. And these are going to be your keys uh, in your goal. So let's split up our two goals. First, we have bulking for those of you that are on the lower weight spectrum and want to gain weight or muscle. And then there's people that want to lose weight. So let's first talk about bulking. There's a lot of misconceptions that follow the idea of bulking. For example, I commonly hear the idea that you need to be eating 20 grams of protein within 15 or 30 minutes or an hour of your workout for your workout to be useful. That is simply not the case. You do need to be eating a sufficient amount of protein, and I'm going to be saying protein and emphasizing the idea of protein a lot in this video. So that is true. You do need to be eating enough protein, but there's no time limit on when you should be eating your protein. You just need to be eating your protein goal. You need to be reaching it by the end of the day. So that could just be throughout the day. And so if you want to lean bulk, you don't really want to put on any, fat, then you need to be focusing on protein no matter what. I don't usually recommend counting calories or, tracking macros, but you need to be eating at least 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. So let's say you are a 160-pound man, you should be eating 160 grams of protein per day. And so the way you want to do that is to push off any sources of protein that involve meat, for example, chicken, like a chicken breast or a steak. Push that off for the end of the day. Have that absolutely last. So throughout the day, you can be eating parv. Let's work backwards. So for dinner, you have a chicken breast or a steak, and that should be 60 grams of protein. That's a lot of protein. You're good. Depending on how much you have, depending on the ounces, usually like a 12-ounce steak, don't quote me on it, is like 60 grams, something like that. So that's your absolute last meal. Before that, a couple hours prior, you can, for lunch, you can have salmon or any other type of fish, sushi, poke bowls. I am a big fan of poke bowls. I highly recommend poke bowls. But things of that nature, just have fish, and fish are also high in omega fatty acids and other things that will just keep you overall healthy and are good for your brain. So have fish. And for breakfast, if you like eggs, have eggs. If you don't, you can have whatever you feel like having for breakfast. I highly recommend that throughout these meals, you keep a protein shake on your side all day. A protein shake and a protein bar. You should keep a protein bar in your car like at all times so you could just snack on it in between meals. Um, and you can also get protein powders that are vegan, so you can have protein powder after your meat. But you don't really need to do that. If you just have your meat at the end of the day, you could just have, your protein shake for breakfast, or you can have your protein shake during snack. But protein shakes, and you can get very high calorie ones like 45 grams, or sorry, not high calorie, high protein ones that are 45 grams. And these are going to be an absolute game changer for reaching your protein goals. And yeah, also should be having a decent amount of carbs throughout the day, white rice, bread. Um, the rule of thumb is usually they say 400 grams of carbs, but it's whatever works with your body. If you find that you are putting on fat faster than you want to be, then you can lower the carbs. And yeah, so that's basically the key with bulking. There's also protein snacks. Like Quest has a lot of has protein everything. There's protein chips, protein bars, protein ice cream, protein bread, protein literally any normal form of food you can get in protein form. So make sure you're hitting your protein goals so that the work you put in the gym gets translated into actual results. So that goes for bulking. Now, when it comes to cutting, the same thing applies. You want to be focusing on protein, 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 no matter what. You want to be hitting your protein goals. However, you want to be in a calorie deficit. So you have to calculate what your maintenance calories are and have less food than you should be, or than you want to, than your body naturally is yearning for. So I would highly recommend just cutting out carbs as much as possible, having minimal carbs, having your white rice or bread if you absolutely have to. If you don't have enough protein, then sure. But if you can have as little carbs, as little fats as possible, salads are going to be your go-to. And so keeping kashrut and kosher make it really easy to not eat, because you can have your chicken or your steak or, meat for lunch, and then you can't really have dairy after that. So that just forces you to not eat anything. And so if you want to force yourself to eat less, then you can have your meat earlier so that you can't have dairy after, because a lot of things that we want to reach for food wise are dairy. So have a lot of shakes, have a lot of fruits. Have fruits are going to be high in fructose. It's just what it is. They're good sugars, they break down easier. Have a lot of salads, of course. You can sprinkle chicken into your salad just to spice it up with, but then you won't be able to have dairy or, protein shake after that. So, long answer short, it is very possible to reach your, fitness goals while you're keeping kosher. I put on about 30 pounds in the last 2 months, 2.5 months, I would say. And it's very possible if you want to lose weight, focus on having your protein so that you can build muscle, and when you have more muscle in your body, it's going to naturally burn more fat. So make sure if you're trying to lose weight, minimize your carbs. You can have meat earlier so that it forces you to not have dairy later. It forces you to like not finish a tub of ice cream, if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. And yeah, if you are bulking, then make sure you're eating enough carbs. If you don't really want to put on fat, then just make sure your protein is more than what you need. You always want to overdo it if you're bulking. Another thing is that if you're trying to put on mass, you should almost never be hungry throughout the day. You should always have something being put in your mouth. And if it's the same thing, the opposite. If you're trying to lose weight, then some parts of the day you're going to be hungry, and that's okay. Just be hungry. Um, and your body will figure out what it's supposed to do, and it will, move accordingly. Um, Talk about other specifics that go into dieting and fitness in other videos, but I hope you guys feel inspired to maintain keeping kosher as well as reaching your fitness goals. I think that fueling your body and building up your body is the ultimate mitzvah. It's the ultimate form of making sure your neshama has the proper vessel to manifest itself in the physical realm. And I think that's something that is not touched on enough. I think taking care of your body in the form of fitness is just as important as tefillah and kashrut and all these different, observant practices. So, once again, hope you learned, hope you're inspired, and we will talk about other topics in future videos. So, take care.